Hello
and welcome to Audi ITV. Today we'll be dealing with a technical treat, and that would be the 12-cylinder diesel engine. And that 12-cylinder engine is right here under the bonnet of this Q7. When discussing engines, one man is indispensable, Wolfgang Mattes from Audi Service Training. Hello.
Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Thomas. Hello, viewers.
A 12-cylinder diesel. Some people might think you've just taken two 6-cylinder engines.
But that's not the case here. We've taken the germ of the Le Mans racing car, the R10, with its 12-cylinder TDI engine, and evolved it for this car. And our 6-cylinder also has a V-angle of 90 degrees, and the 12-cylinder has a V-angle of 60 degrees. That is, a V12 has a firing order of 60 degrees. So it also has a 60-degree V-angle. It's very compact.
We'll talk more about the engine soon, and of course about this car as well. It looks different from the usual Q7. Let's have a look at the engine that we have in here. And here it is. Let's remove the cover. I can do it with one hand. Almost got it.
It's quite heavy.
There it is. You wanted to tell us something about it. It's easy to service.
Yes, it's easy for mechanics if they ever have to do any work on it. For instance, as you can see here, the oil filter is right at the front. Changing and filling the oil is no big deal. You can see very clearly here how the oil filter is positioned as far forward as possible.
We'll talk about this engine in great detail, as well as the technical specs. We'll also look at developments concerning the chain drive, cylinder head and fuel injection system. There's plenty of new things. But I recognize the car without having to look under the bonnet.
True, just by looking.
Let's have a look then. Here's how to recognize when the Q7 has the 12-cylinder diesel engine. Wolfgang, tell us.
It has a powerful wide build. It has enlarged fenders due to fitted wheel housings. The front grille is impressive. And even the skirt itself has giant air intakes. And as we saw just now, the vehicle is fully equipped with ceramic brakes, which are standard on this Audi vehicle. They're necessary for the weight.
Of course, how much does it weigh?
Fully equipped like this one here, the complete vehicle weighs 2,700 kilograms. And it goes 250, at least. But it's limited to 250 kilometers per hour. It could do more, but we limit the vehicles to 250. After all, braking at this speed with this much weight is already quite a feat.
That makes sense with a car this powerful. And we'll see just how powerful it is by taking a look at the technical specs for the Q7 with the 12-cylinder diesel. Okay, Wolfgang, we've prepared a small graphic to demonstrate the technical specs, and as you'll see, they're extremely impressive.
Indeed. Here you can see it has a displacement of 5,934 cubic centimeters. So that's a 6-liter displacement. And that's a figure that lets you know the power output behind it and the torque. 500 HP and 1,000 Newton meters of torque. These are some powerful specs that we have here. That was deliberate. We wanted it to be something special. And 1,000 Newton meters of torque, 500 HP, that's quite a tasty morsel, as they say down my way. And another great thing about the vehicle is the firing order, which is there for everyone to see on the engine. It's impressive. Everyone on my course had to learn it by heart. That's what I did with my students, and what fun we had. The 12-cylinder firing order.
Is it Euro 4 emission standard?
Indeed it is. It would actually fulfill the requirements for Euro 5. But since there's still no EU legislation governing SUV vehicles, it's difficult to say right now, so it's currently classified as Euro 4.
The torque is even more impressive. You've brought along a diagram. We can see that it's actually a straight line.
That occurs from 1,000 revolutions onwards, from idle speed. It's already at 1,000 Newton at 1,500 revolutions. And it really stays up there until it hits 3,500 to 3,750 revolutions. Then it tops out, but still performs optimally. When you're driving, you're constantly at the optimal torque. You really feel that as well. It's great fun.
Is it like that from initial acceleration?
It takes off straight away with real power. The torque falls back a little at startup right until traction occurs. Then the 1,000 Newton meters really come into play. You feel the power. And it's not just the acceleration, it really goes. The wheels positively embed themselves into the asphalt. That's a beauty of the car.
You said if you hit the pedal again at 200, it takes off, right?
It's almost like starting the car at 200.
I'm just trying to imagine that. Let's talk about the cylinder shape itself. We have a V engine. 90-degree cylinder angles are common at Audi. Here it's 60 degrees.
Yes, here we have 60 degrees. From here it goes to the crankshaft center, then to the camshaft center. It's also around about the middle of the pistons. We've got a 60-degree angle there. 12-cylinder engines have an ignition interval of 60 degrees. That's why it's perfect for this V 60 degrees. This also means that we don't have a split crankshaft journal on the crankshaft. As with 6- and 8-cylinder engines, there's a split pin in order to reach the firing order. Here we have a continuous crankshaft journal, and thus the 60 degrees as well. An advantage of all this is that the engine is small, so that it can fit under the bonnet. The downside is its height.
Sodass auch hier in den Motor reinkommt, was natürlich der Nachteil ist, baut sehr hoch dann.
You brought an animation with you which will prove this 60-degree angle.
The film will make everything clear.
Okay, we're coming up to it.
Yes, here you can easily see the angle from the piston or cylinder center from one side to the other, and it's an angle of exactly 60 degrees. This also affects the firing order.
So it's different from the 90-degree angle. The advantage here is that it's smaller, but a little higher.
Yes, it's a motor racing engine, hence this 60-degree angle, because the space restrictions in Le Mans vehicles require this. That's the reason behind it. Stability at the crankshaft is higher than with split-pin crankshafts. There's a very thin connection between the two pins. This engine contains less solid metal and, as such, less material. That's to do with stability.
While we're on the topic of the engine, we should also touch on the chain drive. Let's do so now. We're dealing with a 12-cylinder engine here, so it's a fair assumption that the chain drive will be a rather complex matter.
It sounds complicated and looks complicated, but really it's not. Let's have a look now at the chain drive. Can you open that side? And I'll do this side. The world's fastest mechanic.
Easier when there's only one screw.
I'll remove the main engine cover so we can have a good look inside.
Okay, it all looks pretty...
Complicated? Not at all. It just looks it.
Is there one chain drive?
There are actually two separate chain drives that are not connected to each other with chains, as is usually the case. There's the lower drive. That's the lower section here. Crankshaft to the high-pressure pumps here and here. And the oil pump drive is a separate chain drive. It's not connected with chains, unlike previous Audi V engines. Up here over the camshaft drive, here and here. And the coupling link over here is known as a gear wheel module.
That's the special feature?
The engine's special feature. We don't have a triangle drive that would normally make the connection between crankshaft and camshaft drive. Instead, there are two gear wheels, And these are special gear wheels.
Und es sind auch zwei besondere Zahnräder.
Could you tell us more about them?
Richtig. Wir haben im unteren Bereich
In the lower
hier,
section here, we have the gear wheel that's built into the crankshaft. It has helical teeth, just like the upper gear wheel situated above, but actually only sits on a deviating shaft. It's a deviating shaft, not a balancer shaft like in the six-cylinder. Here's the second gear wheel with helical teeth. This gear wheel's special feature is that it compensates for play in a similar way to the camshaft drive. There's no play between the gear wheels, so we have compensation. The same applies here too. The drive of crankshaft to camshaft is free from play.
Der Antrieb Kurbelwelle zu Nockenwelle ist spielfrei.
Do the chains need replacing when servicing?
Nein, das sind Lifetime.
No, they're lifetime chains. You don't have to do anything to the chain drive. If you have to replace the high-pressure pump like this one due to problems with the drive, then you have to open the chain drive, and you have to take the engine out to do this.
But after that, it's easy to repair.
When the engine's dismantled and the casing cover removed, you can very easily strip down each individual chain drive. You have to reset the engine with the TDC, disconnect the rig pin, and then you can open the upper chain drive and install the high-pressure pump or whatever is defective. Then you disconnect this pump. We'll have a separate show about this. Then it's simple. You don't need to do anything in the upper drive. Previously, you had to readjust all the control cells in the chain drive. That's no longer the case.
Something came to your attention during the course to do with the casing cover seal.
Yes, there's always a problem when unscrewing the large casing cover. When the mechanic inserts the cover here, there's always a continuation of the cylinder head seal on the side here. If the camera zooms in here, you can see it easily. I'll move it a bit. The mechanic who screwed this to the engine didn't take care and damaged the seal, which is actually the casing cover seal for this engine cover. He pushed the thing down. This causes the problem that when the engine's on, oil leaks out.
So it must sit perfectly flat.
Yes, and when fitting it back on, the best thing is to push the cover from below and position it first at these two places. This way the seal is retained. It's a serious problem. If there are leakages and the cover is mounted wrongly, the engine has to be dismantled. That's very time-consuming.
You're letting a few secrets from the course slip there. Now we'll take a look at another animation. The chain drive seems complex, but this will make everything clear. Let's watch the animation.
Let's do that. It's an important one because it shows everything very clearly.
We can see both the upper and lower parts.
You see the separate chain drive with the gear wheel module in between. And here you can see another part which isn't included in series production engines anymore, the upper middle part. The camshaft drive powers it via a gear wheel. That's the coolant pump that was located here in the racing car engine, but which has been shifted to another place in the series. The advantage of the gear wheel module is that we're free from play. There's no clearance through the chain tensioner. There's always movement in the tensioners during load changes. That's not the case with the gear wheel module, so this optimizes the control time.
Making all repairs easier.
Exactly. It's also good as far as exhaust gas legislation is concerned. With exact control times, you have improved exhaust gas characteristics.
Let's go back to how it makes repairs easier. We're at the cylinder head. That's also extremely easy to repair, right?
Easy to repair insofar as the engine has to be dismantled in order to repair the cylinder head. It can no longer be done when assembled. The reason it's easy to repair lies here within the cylinder head itself. I'll just take the cover off and put it over here.
As we can see, this is a typical Audi engine.
Correct. Here we've gone back and made use of Audi's modular system. You can immediately recognize the camshaft drive with this compensation for play that I mentioned, with a gear wheel module from the chain drive. We have built-in camshafts. That means it's a piping system with mounted cams that are hydroformed so that the cams sit properly. Previously, it was always necessary to remove the camshafts if you wanted to get at the valve gear, some valve springs or shank seal. The three-part cylinder head here has made it possible to completely detach the camshaft bearing casing without removing the camshafts and thus dismantling it. You also no longer need a special tool to reinstall it.
We've also got an animation about its three-part design. You'll actually get a good look at it. Why did I say actually? You'll get to see it. Here we have the two cylinder banks. Which one to dismantle, the left or right one?
This is the right cylinder bank. Here are the three parts. The lower section is the valve block where the valves with the valve springs are inserted. The upper two parts form the camshaft bearing housing. The upper is the ladder type frame, which you previously had to remove in order to reach the valve gear in the lower section. The advantage is that you get to the cylinder head screws by removing the housing, which you can't get to in the installed state. You don't have to adjust the shafts to find an opening. It's well designed. It's also much easier for the mechanic, easy to repair.
Definitely. It's no use having 12 cylinders if they don't work properly. They only do that if the fuel injection system works. It has a special feature which we'll look at now. So, now we can get to the fuel injection system. We can take a look at it. We haven't removed the cylinder head, and we have everything we need in front of us here. Is this system similar to the one we know with 8 cylinders?
The common rail system is the same as in all our other models, but this 12-cylinder engine has two separate injection systems. Each cylinder bank has its own injection system.
Are the two banks totally separate?
Yes. They're each controlled by an ECU on the master-slave principle.
Let's run through the components.
The components begin here. Here we have a double piston pump high-pressure pump, a CP 4.2. That means common rail piezo injector, 4th generation, 2 pistons. Hence the two back here. Both lines, both pistons connected on a rail. The two entry points are here and here. Both high-pressure pumps now pump the fuel at high pressure into this rail. This rail firstly contains the fuel pressure regulator that controls the pressure and the pressure sensor at the end of the rail that monitors everything. And of course, 6 injectors for each separate cylinder bank.
How high is the injection pressure?
Here we're at 2,000 bar maximum. So traveling at full throttle, there's 2,000 bar injection pressure at each cylinder bank.
The animation we have will show us how the whole thing functions. You can see that the two systems are separated from each other.
You see them here individually. The advantage is that there's no rail connection underneath, as with the 6- and 8-cylinder engine. So we have two separate systems.
You can even follow the firing order with this.
Yes, you can follow it better here by watching the green flashes.
That's also a possibility. The system runs independently. If one of the two systems fails, I'll still be going with 6 cylinders. Would you notice, or does it work differently?
If a system on one bank fails, the engine stops.
So I couldn't continue driving?
It wouldn't be able to function. It would cause mechanical problems if one side was overburdened. That would damage the mechanism. The system would switch off. We tried this during the course. If I remove the fuel pressure regulator, the engine comes to a stop. There are no emergency operating features for the cylinder bank. However, there is a fail-safe for when individual cylinders fail. Then it would definitely keep running.
Would the customer notice this with 12 cylinders?
If it's one cylinder, the customer wouldn't notice. At some point, the engine warning light will come on. A workshop should then take a look at it. The customer wouldn't really notice. They wouldn't notice a single cylinder failing.
I've asked a few questions, and now you have the chance to do the same. If you have questions on the 12-cylinder diesel, then send them to us now. We'll be back in the studio soon. The first question comes from Audi Center Wiesbaden. What does a red stained section in the oil filler cap mean? They noticed this in a demo car. Is it a contrast medium?
During the run-in period or the first filling, contrast media is put into the oil in the engines made in Györ. This is done to find out if there are leaks during the run-in period. When dealing with warranties, this allows you to see more quickly where oil is leaking from the engine, if that's the case. Hence the contrast media. It changes color, particularly if the engine has been running. With our engines, the coating is a greenish color. It's only the contrast medium, but well observed.
Armin Hen wants to know, does the crankshaft turn anti-clockwise? Does it?
It revolves to the right.
That would be clockwise.
If I'm in front of the engine.
In the direction of travel?
Yes, in the direction of travel. Then it revolves to the left.
Anti-clockwise then?
Anti-clockwise. Or is that clockwise? Like this.
That's how my watch goes.
Okay, that's true.
So yes, that was a rather tricky question. Werner Orendi asks, how heavy is the 12-cylinder engine? Care to lift it, Wolfgang?
I wouldn't be able to. I'm not that strong. The unit weighs approximately 330 kilograms.
That's
respectable. Yes, the whole thing is solid castings. The block from vermicular casting is very sturdy and correspondingly heavy.
There's also fluid inside. You said that coolant is more than 2 cases of beer.
Yes, it contains 23.5 liters of coolant, and it contains 16.5 liters of oil without dry sump lubrication. There is no dry sump lubrication. Instead, there's an oil pan. So there's 16.5 liters of oil, including the filter.
Coolant is the topic of the next question from the Rhine region. Why was the coolant pump built in differently to the racing car? Where's the coolant pump in racing cars and in the Q7?
In racing cars, it was integrated at the back of the chain drive in the gear wheel section. The coolant system here looks different to those in racing cars. It's at the front, where it can be better accessed. The coolant control takes place there, while racing cars don't have it. Therefore, it's been mounted in a separate casing at the front, so the mechanic can get to it more easily.
The next question is from Audi Center Reutlingen, and it's about oil standards.
Engines in all vehicles with particulate filters use W12 They use low ash oil, and it's designed for long life service, that is 30,000 kilometers or 2 years.
A respectable volume of oil.
Indeed, 16.5 liters of VW50700. You can work out yourselves what an oil change costs.
The next question, what's the maximum injection pressure and why were the systems separated?
It was the logical thing to do. The size of the engine requires a lot of fuel for each bank. 6-liter displacement also has to be supplied with fuel. So in the case of full load drives, this allows you to have the full amount of fuel via 2 high-pressure pumps. 2 separate systems are suited to that. Having 2 separate systems was the best way to do this. Of course, they're coordinated by the master ECU, so that both cylinder banks operate evenly with injected fuel quantity, etc.
How would I notice if it wasn't functioning? Would the engine behavior tell me?
Something along those lines. An open injector would disturb the vehicle's quiet running, and this engine is extremely quiet. You don't imagine that it's a 12-cylinder engine.
We tested that with a coin.
Compared with an electric motor, it's very quiet. Put a coin on top of it and it won't fall over.
The next question, what's the maintenance interval?
30,000 kilometers in long life service. If you're set to a fixed interval, then it's 15,000 kilometers. But as it's equipped with 2 particulate filters, the vehicle generally uses the low ash oil, the VW standard 50700.
Rainer Lange asks about the future. Will this engine also be in the A8?
No.
If there was space?
No.
In the next A8?
No.
So this engine is
exclusively for the Q7. It wasn't even specially developed for this vehicle. It was developed for use in car racing, for the Le Mans racing car. From there it was further modified to suit only the Q7. It's an exclusive vehicle since only this vehicle has this engine.
Werner Wust wants to know, is the engine limited to 250?
Yes, just like all our vehicles. It's not a special vehicle, it's a production vehicle. All our vehicles are limited at 250 kilometers per hour. This is a condition that the manufacturer has specified.
A kind of self-censorship. Sebastian Schwinglenschlugel asks, if you replace the chain unit when changing a pump, must you also replace the second one?
No. Why does he want to replace the chain drive if he only has to replace the pump? The chains don't receive much wear. We haven't even had to check the chain's length to see if it's stretched, as there's no need to do that. We can reintegrate the chain unit when we change the high-pressure pump.
Patrick Augustin wants hard figures. How much is this car? A fair amount.
It does cost more than most of us can afford. For some people it won't matter. This vehicle costs around 150,000 euros in Germany.
But the ceramic brakes come with it.
Yes, it's standard for the front and back axle to have 20-inch ceramic brakes and brake discs. So it's well equipped in this respect. The vehicle is worth the money. It's equipped with Bang & Olufsen.
You don't have to try and sell it. Another cost-related question, what does such an engine cost?
I haven't looked into this. It's not available as a replacement part and never will be available. I'd say at least 30,000 euros, if not slightly more, is the cost of the engine alone.
If I want to have it, I won't find it in any other model. If I drove an A8, maybe I could have it retrofitted.
No, you couldn't. It's quite expensive.
Put it on the back seat of the A3.
It would fit there for sure.
A question that's verging on pseudo-philosophical. Heinrich Peter wants to know, is there a fuel-saving mode if you switch off single cylinders?
No. It goes into trailing throttle at 0 delivery. But I can tell everyone who thinks that it's a massive gas guzzler, this isn't the case. If you look at the specs, in city conditions it averages 9 liters in fuel consumption. On the motorway it's also consistently in this region. I said 9 for the city? No, 11 in the city, 9 in the country, and 16 when at load. I've also driven the car, and I was surprised. It was under 10 liters from Neckarsulm to Ingolstadt most of the time I was driving. The engine only guzzled fuel when I really pushed it. But you have to bear a few things in mind. This 6-liter displacement, the 1,000 Newton meters and the 500 HP, it's really economical.
Last question from Johannes Gerauer. Can you order the contrast medium, and should you refill it when changing the oil?
No, it's only for the first filling, in order to spot leaks. That settles the matter as to whether it leaks or not. It's not refilled again.
I have one last question. Does the Q7 have a safety device to prevent incorrect fueling?
No, not at the moment.
It has a diesel sticker.
It has a diesel sticker. I know what he's thinking. If you accidentally fill it with petrol, that means you have to replace 12 injectors and 2 high-pressure pumps. And don't forget working time. That's good for the workshop, not for the customer. You'd have to take out insurance for that. But there is a system we'll discuss in the next program, if I'm on the program, dealing with clean diesel. It has an incorrect fueling protection system. Only a diesel fuel pump nozzle can be inserted in the fuel flap.
Or by using force.
Or with force, or a little patience. That could work. You can have it refitted for safety. I don't know about this right now, but we're thinking about it.
Thanks for your answers, and thanks for your questions. If we didn't answer it, check out Audi ITV Net. The answers to your questions are there. You can view this program again, download it and evaluate it. There's an online questionnaire under the rubric Quality Feedback. That's all for today. Next week, there's more about sports cars. It's about the RS model, or more accurately, DRC filling. There are some innovations that will make servicing easier. Thank you for watching. Wolfgang, thank you as well.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. All the best. Bye.
Tschüss.